Hey everybody, it's Tim and Steve here at Phantom History House. How are you tonight, Steve?
I am well. How are you?
I'm good. We're going to be talking about scare actors. Everybody, it's going to be really interesting. Thank you for watching. Welcome to Phantom History House Calls. All right, so scare actors.
Yes, we have a guest tonight who has called in from California, who has done scare acting for quite some time and has some really interesting stories. He and I had a chance to chat on Instagram and through some emails. So I'm excited to get his perspective. But I love talking about scare acting because, it's no secret I love Halloween. And we love going to all these haunted attractions. But one of the gigs I have done for the past 7 years, is I work at Hollow Scream at Busch Gardens.
7 years.
7 years. Yeah. It's hard to believe.
You love doing it.
I do love doing it. It's hard work, but it's a lot of fun, and you get to interact with these scare actors on a whole different level.
So what does that mean? Like I know you get to know them backstage, and then when you're walking through the park, you get to experience what they're doing.
Yeah, you get to experience what they're doing. I think you get a whole different appreciation for what they're doing as well, because they're working so hard to bring a guest a memorable experience. And the ones that I've seen, the really good ones I've seen, kind of change their technique depending on who their victim is.
Because,
which is fantastic.
We'll have to talk to Jacob about that. It's gonna be interesting.
Yeah. And thanks everybody for tuning in a little bit later than what we normally do. But we of course, wanted to accommodate Jacob since he is on California time. And remember, if you are watching, drop us a note in the chat. Let us know where you're watching from, and you can always ask questions as well.
And so if you go to our website at phantomhistory.com, right there on the main page, there is a link to click on the things that we are selling. So we are downsizing, and there's lots of really cool things that we've collected here for the house. Furniture, items of all kinds of every sort.
Photos.
That are available. So if you go up to that page, it'll explain to you how it works. And then it'll take you, give you a link to a Google Drive page. And there's new stuff being added every day. I mean, today we've added 2 or 3 items already that are really nice. So if you're interested in the items, or you think we might have something you might want, or someone that might want, keep checking on that page.
Send them our way. And of course, you can always send us an email or shoot us a message through social media as well. If something is in your brain that you remember seeing that you want to know if it's available, we're always happy to answer those questions.
You can always just send us a note and say, hey, what about this thing that I loved when I was there? That kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of which, people who have been here, we are looking forward to welcoming some guests in this weekend who have been here before. So that's going to be exciting.
Absolutely.
We do have a guest here with us right now who is an international guest who has been here for a few days, which is always fun. So we are still staying busy with the guests here at the B&B.
Yeah, it's been really great. We've had a lot of guests from overseas lately, which is always really, really fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
So should we bring Jacob in?
I think we should. Yeah. Remember, drop your questions in the chat and let us know where you're watching from.
Please do. All right. So hi, Jacob.
Hi, guys.
Welcome to Phantom History House Calls, Jacob. And thanks for being here. Just tell us briefly a little bit about yourself and what you do and where you are.
So I am from Simi Valley, California, and I have been scare acting off and on for about, I started when I was 12. And I'm 23 now. I just turned 23 this past Sunday. So I've been doing it off and on for about 11 years.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I already have questions, but where are you in California?
I am in Simi Valley. So
he said that.
I live
Sorry, keep going. Where is that?
I live in Ventura County, so I'm more towards the coast.
Okay, very good.
And you said you started scare acting when you were 12, which I know that was your question.
That's of course. That's what I want to hear.
So,
how does that happen?
Yeah, exactly. How does that happen? What was that experience like?
So it was one October, and my friend, one of my best friends at the time, he had this Halloween festival at his church, and they were running a haunted house, and they were looking for volunteers to be inside of the maze. And I was one of a few volunteers that helped build the haunted house and be acting in it. And as a 12-year-old, I probably had one of the funnest scares that a 12-year-old could have. Me and my best friend at that time, we were the finale. So you would walk through this room to get out, and there would be a shower curtain on one side and a coffin on the other side. And I was in the coffin, just white makeup, black robe. And my friend it was like the classic psycho shower curtain. And he came out with a knife, and people had to outrun two decently sized 12-year-olds to get out of the maze. So I did that. Over the past few years, I've worked some yard haunts in my neighborhood. And up until I was 18, I did that when I stopped trick-or-treating. And in 2021, since I couldn't do it during 2020, I auditioned for the critically acclaimed Reign of Terror haunted house in Thousand Oaks, California. It is one of the largest haunted houses in the United States.
Wow. Okay. So there's a lot to unpack there. First of all, I have to say that just being chased by two 12-year-olds is enough to like, that sounds like enough for a scary ending, much less the coffin in the psycho. But, sorry, all 12-year-olds. I'm just joking.
Well, I have to say, too, that I relate to that part of your story a lot, because when I was about 12, 13 years old, there was a gentleman at my church who put together a yard haunt, and those of us in the church would go, and I was in the cemetery, and I was like a werewolf or something, and I had so much fun scaring people, and I was like, oh, this is so much fun being in on the joke. So my question for you is, as you got older, did you know that you wanted to pursue this and go into like some of the more commercialized versions of the haunts? Is that always a goal?
No, I honestly just thought it was fun. And then it wasn't until I was about 14 or 15 years old that I really found myself immersed in the haunt industry. And I started to go to various events across Southern California, like Not Scary Farm, Six Flags Fright Fest, Universal's Halloween Horror Nights. And when I was 14, I started going to Reign of Terror because it was one city over for me. And I went every year for 7 years until I could finally audition.
So did you say you turned 18? Is that one of their rules?
Yes, you have to be 18 at most haunted attractions to act.
Okay.
At least from my experience.
I assume the Reign of Terror, should I move in on that?
No, yeah.
Like, this is like a very seriously scary, sort of adult scary kind of thing, right? Can you describe it to us? I don't know anything about that one. It sounds great.
So Reign of Terror has been around since 1999. And this past haunt season in 2024 was the 25th year that it had been running. And it started as a home haunt, and it finally moved to the point where it could get big and move out of the owner's neighborhood. And it has moved spaces a little bit, but overall it has always held that title in Southern California as one of the largest independent haunts. It is, if my memory serves me correctly, it is 142 rooms and 10 different themed sections, with just a casual walkthrough being anywhere from half an hour to 45 minutes.
Holy cow.
Depending on how fast you run.
Oh my gosh. So like this you go through without a pause? Like there's no like...
It's just, you go through all at once.
Woo!
And it's like you're walking through 10 different haunts at one time.
Yeah, but see, it's Jacob, you don't know me, but I'm the kind of guy that like goes through one and then I need to like collect myself and maybe have a whiskey drink. You know what I mean? Yeah. That would be really challenging to me. I'm sure I could do it, but holy cow, 30 minutes, like you'd be so buzzed up on adrenaline. I would think it would just be crazy.
Think of the cardio workout you get just for being
yeah. But I could run through it a lot faster than 30 minutes.
Well, this is one of the things I always ask characters when I meet them, because in my limited experience working at Busch Gardens here for Hollow Scream as a tour guide, not as a scare actor, I will often ask or overhear them, different scare actors, talking about their big scare of the night. Like, oh, I got this guy or I got this girl. Is that a pretty common thing? And is that like something you always are like looking for, that big scare? What's that like?
Yes. After every night, it kind of depends. If one of us had a couple of big scares, we have security cameras in every room that there's an actor. So if I get a scare that I'm like, oh my God, that was actually really good. Wow. I will screenshot it on my phone and then give it to one of our techies who has access to the cameras and be like, hey, at this timestamp or approximately this time, like I got a really good scare where it can be anything from people falling over, fetal position, people running into walls and accidentally breaking things.
Oh, wow. I mean, the idea of jumping out and making someone run into a wall sounds really fun. I mean, that's probably terrible for me to say that. That one sounds like your kind of thing.
That's not my kind of thing.
You watch a video of somebody running into a wall. So, do you have one specific memory that you can share with us? Like, one time I got this guy and he was like, you got anyone like that?
I have a couple. So my third year, I was in so when it comes to our different sections, I was in our section that was called Inbred, and it was very Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Wrong Turn, like crazy cannibal hillbillies. And my scare was a hallway, and on your left-hand side there would be a sliding like meat locker door. And I would be in the door and I would run out at people with a knife, and I would be in like overalls with a pig head on, and I would be covered in fake blood. So it worked.
I want to scream right now.
People would turn the corner. I would scare them and they would run out of the room, but not all the time people would run. One time I had a group of 3 or 4 people. I popped out at them. I kind of stood out in the hallway because there were kind of like candle lights flickering everywhere, and they fell on top of each other like dominoes, and they were just at the end of the hallway in a pile. And I watched all 4 or 5 of them crawl into the next room.
And I just want to say, as you're telling this story, we have a past guest of ours, Jen, who was watching on Instagram, who was cheering you on, saying yes, because she works at a haunt here in the Tampa Bay area. We've talked to her.
I wonder if Jen's ever had anybody domino down and have to crawl out. That's amazing. Like you were like the guy, right?
Yeah, I had that. And then this past 2024 season, I changed roles. So I was in one of our larger sections called Quarantine, and it's kind of like a mixture of Alien and The Thing. So very like military bunker, and they're doing all these private experiments, and like there's various creatures. So I was playing one of the creature roles, and it's funny because my character's name was Lieutenant Ripley of Alien. But I had this crazy makeup on. I looked like I had like tendrils coming out of my face.
Wow.
But I was in this room, and it kind of looped back on itself, and it was all chain link with strobe lights. So you kind of had to find your way through a little bit, and there would be a cutout in the middle of the room where I would run out at people. But we do an event every season called Lights Out, where all of the show lights are off, and you have to walk through the entire haunted house with a glow stick. And
Wow.
I took advantage of this, and I saw a group coming with their little glow stick around the corner, and I had to fix one of the fences because somebody had slammed into it because they got so scared. So I was already out fixing the fence, and I see people turn the corner, and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to stand here because they can't see me at all. And I run at them once. I use my little secret door to go back in the cage. I run at them again through the cage. They're running out of the room, and I run behind them, and I get them out of the room. And they're all screaming and tripping over one another.
I love that. It's like herding cattle. You scare them on through.
I don't know about this in the dark.
Yeah.
But one thing that I think that sets you apart from some scare actors we've talked to, just because based on our previous conversation, is, I've always wondered about, when you're in one of these haunted attractions and you're in there hiding and you're waiting, you're in that environment and it's designed to be creepy. Is it creepy for you waiting for the next victim to come along? What's that wait like?
I mean, for me, I'm mostly paying attention to different sound cues. I mean, I'm like waiting, I'm hanging out, but in the corner of my eye or my ear, my hearing or whatever, I'm listening to my friends in parts of the haunted house before me get their scares in. So I'm like, okay, a group is like X minutes away before I can, before I have to really lock in and scare them.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you would have an idea when they're coming.
Yeah.
So do you have the same role for the whole season? Is that the way that works, or do you switch depending on the night?
It really depends on the actor, but for me, I tended to have the same role every season.
Right, but I mean, like once the season begins, that Halloween, you stay in that same role. Are there people that switch from night to night within the same
Yes.
Halloween season?
Yes. We in our haunt, we call those our fill actors, because say someone's sick or somebody can't, come in for some reason, they come in and they fill in those specific important roles that we need filled.
Kind of like a swing in a Broadway show.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was going to say. It is a show that you're putting on every night, so you have to have your backup people. And I think people forget the team that goes into making these. You have the designers of the set, you have the people who write the stories, you have the makeup people, you have the scare actors, you have the managers. There's just like this whole team that is in charge of these. Now, I did want to bring up something, Jacob, that you and I did talk about before, because we do love things all paranormal, and you shared with me that you've actually had a paranormal experience while working in a haunted attraction.
Yeah, I've had two.
I would love for you to share those with us.
Both in my different roles.
Okay, let's hear it. Let's hear the first one. This is cool.
So when I was in inbred, how my room was set up, it was the hallway, and then I could see around the corner into what we call the butcher room. It's just a room filled with like hanging body parts and heads and stuff like that. And I had this little plexiglass screen that I could see out of, to see people coming. And I remember it was a couple days before Halloween, and I don't know if it was because I was tired or my eyes were playing tricks on me or whatever, but nobody had come in my little room for about 5 minutes. And all of a sudden I start to see two of the hanging heads. They're kind of offset by one another, but I start to see both of them swing on their own. And I found it was the weirdest thing. You guys hear
myself. There's no reason for those to be moving, is what you're saying.
No, they're supposed to be just static hanging props.
Wow.
Which is eerie, because there is air conditioning and stuff like that, but if you're in the room long enough and looking around, what's supposed to happen. So
yeah,
that's unsettling. What was your thought? Were you like, oh, this is cool, or this is freaking me out, I need to get out of here, or what was going on?
Honestly, I felt my heart drop. To be completely honest, I felt my heart drop in that moment. I'm like, I've heard my managers tell me that there is someone or something attached to this haunted house. Is this them? Like letting me know, hey, I'm here. Because in certain sections of the haunted house, we do have antique items. For example, in our Victorian house, we call it the haunted house because it's kind of like a classic Victorian haunted mansion. We have antique like paperwork and all sorts of things like that from family members past of the owners. And even in our like insane asylum, we have a authentic, like I think either 1950s or 1960s dental chair.
That's cool.
And there's an actor, there's two actors. One of them will be like a patient sitting in the chair, and the other one will be like a dentist, drilling into their mouth. But
Mm-mm.
I knew that something was there, and I wasn't sure exactly if my eyes were playing tricks on me or if that was that entity letting me know that they were there.
Wow.
So you saw an actual apparition.
I've seen an actual apparition too.
That was a different time. Tell us about that one.
So this occurrence happened this past season. It was like a day before Halloween or two. It's a coincidence that all this stuff happens around Halloween. But I was looking through my little peephole, making sure nobody was coming, and all of a sudden, like, it almost looked like it was floating towards me. I see a woman in white, a white dress, white hair. Like, her hair was down in front of her face, so I couldn't see her expression. And I'm like, oh, okay, like somebody's coming. And I got ready I ran out into the cage, and I look around and there's nobody there. And then I'm like, okay, either this person got so scared they went backwards, or this is something. So I got out of the cage. I perused the whole room. I even went backwards to make sure that there was nobody like stuck or anything earlier, and there was nobody there. And I went to a couple of my coworkers who are positioned later in the haunted house, and I asked them, I'm like, did you guys see a woman in all white with white hair like come through the haunted house? And they said no.
So no one else had seen this or has reported this. This was unique to you.
Nobody else saw her. It was unique to me.
All right. The thing about the hair in the face is really unsettling.
It's
almost as if she was looking down.
Okay.
Yeah, I was picturing like the ghost from The Ring. That's dark hair, but has the hair hanging out in front of her. So that begs the question for me, Jacob, is have you had paranormal encounters before other than this, like out in everyday life?
Yes. In my house, I know it's kind of adorable, but I have a ghost of one of my past pets that is still in my house.
I love that.
How do you know?
I've had multiple occurrences with my childhood dog ever since he passed away. He had cancer, unfortunately, but we put him down in my living room. And I remember a couple nights after he had passed, I heard his little footsteps on the floor, like coming towards my childhood bedroom. I've also had instances where I have felt a weight, like a big weight pushing against me on my bed. And I'm like, okay, that's him. He's laying on the bed. But yeah, we have him, in his little urn in our living room with his collar and stuff like that. So he's still in my house.
Well, it shows that not all hauntings are scary, and some are very sweet.
Yeah.
Some entities want to stick around for a good reason. So yeah,
that's nice.
I love that. And again, it could be maybe the dog is tied to the house, the collar, the urn. I mean, that's the thing too, which goes back to what you're talking about with these haunts. There's so many antiques and so many old things that are part of the props that who knows where they came from and what could be tied to those.
Exactly.
That's just wild to think about.
So are you aspiring to be an actor in any other way, or is this just like your fun niche in the entertainment world?
This is honestly just my fun little niche in the entertainment world. I actually come from a film and photography space. I am an award-winning filmmaker and photographer, and I currently am in college. I'm studying marketing, so I'm actually working with a close family friend who I met through Reign of Terror to create a new kind of interactive experience brand podcast all wrapped up into one called Terrifying True Stories, where it's one part podcast and it tells terrifying true stories that people have experienced from the person who experienced it. And we are also working with various haunted locations in Southern California and historic locations to put on various immersive theatrical live events.
Cool. Congrats. And
So
congrats
this
on the
past
awards.
Halloween, we did our first Terrifying True Stories by Candlelight event.
Nice.
And it was our first time doing it, and it sold out all 3 performances.
Wow, congrats. That's awesome.
Well, there's such a market out there for these horror things, paranormal stories, real stories. And I love that you are such a horror buff because you like doing conventions and stuff too, right?
Yes, I love doing horror conventions.
So when you go to these conventions, do you go looking for specific types of horror? Do you go in costume? What's your convention like?
It kind of depends. Normally, I am dressed up with 3 of my other friends, and we normally pick a theme for that day. One of my friends, Grady, I'm going to plug his Instagram. His Instagram is @theboogeymancan. He is one of my best friends and one of my most longtime collaborators in the haunt industry. But him and a couple of my other friends will normally pick a theme for conventions here in California, like Midsummer Scream, Monsterpalooza, and we will go dressed as like clowns, kind of like a hillbilly cannibal family, various stuff like that.
Or hillbilly cannibal clowns.
Yeah.
Like that would be terrifying too.
I'm sensing a theme with the hillbilly.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty darn creepy.
Yeah.
That sounds like fun though. And yeah. So
my I'm into all this too. I love going to these haunted attractions and stuff. And I have friends that are like, oh, there's no way I could go. I'm too scared. I don't want to hurt somebody, And then when I do finally get them to go, they're like, oh, I get it. This is so much fun. So what is your advice, from being on the inside of these haunted attractions to somebody who's a little bit scared or unsure if it's right for them? What would you say to them about the experience? And do you try to convince people to go?
So believe it or not, I actually used to be one of those people that was absolutely terrified of going in any sort of haunted attraction because when I was a kid, I had a really bad experience with a home haunt and I came out crying and all that stuff. And then I don't know, it just clicked within me and I'm like, wow, this is actually really, really cool. I would say to someone that hasn't experienced a haunted attraction yet, and they feel like they're too scared to, just breathe through it and go in a large group.
Yeah.
Because then you will get to see your friends even getting scared. And it may even become something where you are laughing at your friends being scared, and the thought of you getting scared kind of just it's not in the frontal.
I like that because you're wondering who's going to get it next, and then you laugh about everybody's reaction, and then you come to this point where you're like, oh, I'm in on the fun, and that's kind of something you experienced your first time.
That is exactly, as I was one of those people, Jacob, that was like, I don't want somebody coming at me with a chainsaw, right? And I don't like to be scared. But what I found was that it was fun to see people be scared, right? Mm-hmm. And to sort of enjoy that side of it. And then I also, just thought it was really interesting realizing how they were set up and where the people may be hiding. And I sort of started being aware of the experience of the scare actors themselves.
Yeah. And
it became clear to me that they were having fun and they weren't out to hurt me. Anyway, I just kind of got past it. I realized kind of the intent of it. And yeah. I laugh a lot when I go through them because maybe that's one of my reactions to being scared, is I do know I sometimes laugh when I get nervous, but I will often just laugh all the way through them because it's so funny to me and people are reacting and that's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's fun. Yeah.
And
that's great advice. I like this advice for people.
And I know it's a really good scare when the scare actor laughs with you when they get you. I'm sure you've had that experience.
There have been a couple times. I am thankful that for my first 3 years at Reign of Terror, I was in a mask, so I could laugh at people under the mask and they would have no clue. But there are a couple of times where I have scared like my friends coming through, and they will start laughing and they will see me kind of have a smile come over my face as I go back into my little curtain.
Right.
I love it. Well, this has been, I've really enjoyed hearing about all this and seeing this new perspective on it. And thank you for the good work you're doing to give people so much fun and enjoyment and scares, like you're giving people a great time. And I think that must be really fun. Like when you leave at the end of the night, you probably think like, man, I helped a lot of people have a lot of fun and really have a great experience. That must be the way you feel, right?
It is. And honestly, at its core, as I've been at Reign of Terror and now also starting up things with Terrifying True Stories, the main reason why I find that I do it more than anything is the people, because sometimes you meet some of the dopest people who, I mean, for me, all my best friends are people who I met through the haunt community, and I feel like they are now like my second family.
That's awesome.
Now, if people wanted to stay in touch with you or follow you and see what you're doing, you have a lot going on. You'll have a lot of handles.
Yes.
Where can people find you and learn more about you?
So where people can find me primarily is, so I have multiple different accounts. I have my filmmaking and photography page, and that is at JBall Productions, all one word. And if you want to see more of my spooky side and some of the original characters I've created, events I've gone to and or worked, you can follow me on Instagram at jballhaunts, all one word. And then as for Terrifying True Stories and what we are doing with that, you can find us on all social media platforms and all listening platforms for the podcast at Terrifying True Stories, all one word.
Very cool.
He's a busy guy. You got a lot going on.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, keep doing this good stuff, and we'll be following
all that on top of being a college student.
Oh, she did.
Exactly. That's crazy. Yeah, it was good for you. I think it's awesome.
Well, you have to have that balance of life and then fun life, because, we do that ourselves. We got our day jobs.
It's all entertainment based and sort of in the same world too. So it's interesting.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad we got a chance to talk to you, Jacob. Thank you so much for calling in to Phantom Mystery House Calls tonight to chat with us. And of course, everybody, make sure you give Jacob a follow on all those great platforms. Terrifying True Stories, J-Ball Haunts, that's JBAL Haunts, and J-Ball Productions, JBAL Productions. So make sure you check them out.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you for taking time to talk with us. This was great.
Of course. Thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it.
Everybody who are here every Wednesday, usually at 7 p.m.
Absolutely. And we will be back again next week, and keep an eye out for more episodes of the Phantom History Podcast coming out every other Sunday.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.